Going live in 3, 2, 1. Hey, I'm live. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out my weekly Saturday streams at 9 p.m. Pacific time. This is my 50th week in a row. So two more of these, and we'll have a whole year of every single week doing this thing. This thing I'm doing is working on my side project, the web desktop environment, web OS, whatever you want to call it. Calling it OS is a little tricky. I know it's not an OS, but it's trying to be. Cut it some slack, perhaps. Um, this is a live stream I'm going to be doing, so feel free to leave some comments. Feel free to post some messages in the live chat if you're watching it right now. And if you like this video, throw me a like. And if you like the concept, you like previous videos, you just want to keep throwing likes around, I'll take them. You know. And same goes for subscribe. It's motivating to me to see people subscribing and following me. And in my mind, I translate the subscriptions into like interest, I guess. So it's like, oh, I have this many people interested in the ideas. So it helps. I appreciate it, and at the same time, it keeps you apprised of my latest posts. To get even more apprised, I think there's like a little bell icon thing you can click, but I don't want you guys to have to click too much. So just click in that general area, hopefully. If you feel like it, though, only. I don't want to pressure you. Powered by Red Bull again, once again. Tinier one this time, the 250 milliliter Dragon Fruit Summer Edition. So, not sponsored by, but powered by. So, I do not need Red Bull as a sponsor. I don't want sponsors at all, in fact. And I didn't post it in this title, but I posted it in the places I've shared it. And I think if you guys have followed my posts, my videos over the last like 3 or 4 weeks, that there might have been a few times where I mentioned about having some news, perhaps, some big news, that kind of thing that I could talk about in the future. And now I have it. So I wanted to finally announce it here. I've actually already posted it on my LinkedIn thing. And just to preface this a little bit, I don't think it's related to anything involving my OS thing that I've been working on, this side project. As far as I know, I didn't really bring it up too much during the conversations, but just to cut to the chase, I guess. On Friday, yesterday was my last day at my previous company at Alita, which I had a good time at, but I've decided to take up an opportunity, and drum roll, I'll be working at Microsoft. So that's pretty cool, right? I mean, it's pretty weird. I feel like almost it's like meta that I'm working on this Windows 10 clone, and now I have this opportunity to work at Microsoft. Like I said, they're completely separate. Microsoft, like I mentioned it, I think, to the interviewers, I believe, and I don't even think I really showed it to them or anything. Perhaps they looked at it and thought it was cool. I don't know. It hasn't been mentioned, but I mean, it's not really about that. It's about the hard work I did in the interviews, and I knew my stuff and that kind of thing. So I'm very happy and excited to be able to start a role. I'm actually starting this Monday, so just in a couple days. I'll be in Vancouver, the Vancouver office, hopefully. So, but I guess maybe it'll be like a hybrid work thing, so it'll be remote too. But I'm excited either way, and I'm not going to reveal anything or anything like that other than just that's the news. I'm working there now. So I'll be a software engineer level 2, which is kind of cool. And yeah, I'm so excited about it because if you've ever watched the video on my story about my being self-taught and everything like that, I'm just straight out of high school, start doing computer repair, and then had a 5-year job gap where I went traveling through the world and such. Not literally through the world, through the core, but around it on the outside. And then yeah, just started getting into software development just because I've liked computers since I was a kid. And I mean, it has still been hard work. Like even just getting into the software development side, I've been doing it for like 6, 7 years now in Vancouver. Before I had my IT career for like 6 years, fixing computers and doing like IT stuff, and then with the travel in the middle. So I've been working for I guess like 13 years now, roughly. But still, I never expected this. I mean, I always kind of thought you would need a computer science degree or something like that, or it'd just be impossible to do. But I've managed it, so it's possible, I guess. And I don't have any experience information yet on it because I haven't had my first day yet. But I hope to have an opportunity to do some more videos and kind of talk about it more in the future. So, but yeah, that's not what you're here for. You're here for building of a desktop environment. So let's jump into that. All right. I think it'll be a shorter video this week because I have less commits. I only did like 30 commits, and I think some of them we're not even going to do. But we got some cool ones in here, some big ones, I feel. Some that took me a lot of time to figure out and where I had to kind of go into some of the libraries I was using and actually create new solutions. I don't know if solutions is the right word for it, but add on to the libraries to make them better so that they work for my purposes. And we'll get into that very shortly, but let's just start with the first commit that I did in this this branch that we're going to put in our main branch here. Package upgrades. Ooh, exciting. This might have automatically got removed by Next.js. Yeah, probably, because there's a Next.js upgrade. These look decently minor. I've decided to start leaving package upgrades till the end because, surprise, surprise, they sometimes break stuff. A week ago when I did this, it didn't break it. But even just this 666 deletions, that's bad luck, you know. Let's avoid this one. Let's not do that. I'm half joking with that one, but yeah, we can do package upgrades at the end because if it breaks things, I'll fix it throughout the week and the build branch will be broken. But if anybody ever needed to check it out or anything, I mean, just look at right after this episode, I'll make redo episode 51 branch because this is episode 50, and I'll just start putting commits in there when I have time, you know. But once I start this new job, it might keep me a bit busier. I guess we'll see. I mean, for sure it will, but my evenings I'll still have time, and that was another thing I was actually going to announce. Another minor announcement. I think I've mentioned this a million times before, but the plan is 2 weeks from now, like January, 2 or 3 weeks from now, whatever it is, January 2nd, I'm thinking, or what Saturday is? What's the January Saturday? First Saturday of January. Let's figure it out together. I'm gonna go to my browser here and just look at a calendar. Calendar, December 2021. Okay, whatever, that works. Oh wait, I don't even want December 2021. What am I talking about? I just said January. Sure, and then we'll fix this. I don't want to. There we go. That works. Okay, here we go. So first Saturday. Oh, it's the 1st. So January 1st? I don't know. Maybe I won't do it on January 1st. Maybe it'll be... that's a good idea, though. We'll see. Maybe January 1st. Anyways, early in January, I'm going to release this. And dustinbrett.com, which is my domain that I have, will become this app. So it'll have my blog posts in there, my pictures, and just everything that my app does. I guess I haven't even showed you in this video, but here it is right now in its current form. It does some stuff. It's basically a web desktop environment. That's the hope for it, or whatever you want to call it. It has apps that do stuff. Lots of apps, actually. I keep adding to it all the time. We're going to add some more features today and some little tweaks and such. One of the features I'm pretty proud of is a file system related that I added onto that library. But yeah, there's a million apps, and we can get into that another time. I do plan when I do this release, maybe I'll even have an episode that'll be like the release party episode. And maybe I'll just spend hours going through all the different stuff and just playing with it, and maybe we'll find some bugs together. Actually, that could be fun. I'll be like, go to dustinbrett.com. You know, oh, I got spammers here already in my live chat. I constantly get spammers. I wish it's the same message every time. Come on, YouTube. Can't you guys figure this out? I've marked it as unwanted spam, the exact same message, like 40 times now. What am I even wasting time marking it for? I don't know. Anyways, yeah, I could just go through a bunch of demos and then we could do it together. Like we all go to dustinbrett.com. That's another part of my plan. That's actually why I might not release it right at the start of January, is I want to get the server stuff right this time. Because last time my DNS failed me when I posted like my last project over a year ago almost. And yeah, I guess it was over a year ago. It went down eventually. It got so popular, which is, hey, that's good to have. It was, I mean, so popular. Let's say maybe it got 1,000 in a day hits, and that was too much for it because the server was terrible. So I'm gonna have a better server. I'm gonna use CDNs. I actually have a note on one of the things I want to do on the board is icon cache still, because it's kind of inefficient the way it does the icons. So if I end up putting a bunch of my travel photos on there, and if it has to make those little icons, it's going to download every single photo in full size. That's not what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-do that locally and have it generate little thumbnails, and then I'm also going to host those. So when someone new comes to the site, those will already be pre-built into my icon cache that I'll have on the site preloaded. That's the plan, at least. But I was pretty close to the icon cache. I feel like it was last episode or the episode before where I tried to show people the icon cache and then it just like didn't work, so I ended up not doing it. Okay, let's get to this. Let's do the big reveal. Mount directory from local FS. What am I talking about? Basically, let's get into it here. So browser FS, it's the library I use for the file system. Browser FS is an in-browser file system that emulates the Node.js file system API and supports storing and retrieving files from various backends. So backends, that's what I added. Basically, I added a backend that didn't exist already. This hasn't been updated in a long time. I actually created a PR, and I based it off of other backends. So I just went into like source, backend, and you see there's all these different backends. So I was already using some of these. Like I'm using HTTP requests for the files that I host that get put as like fake file system files. So it's like I generate a JSON file, and then based on that, it knows which file to request, and then it requests it via HTTP request to get the data. And another one here is IndexedDB. That's what's used for doing the writing. And then I use a mountable file system. Sorry, I use an overlay file system combined with the HTTP and the index. So the index is for writing, the HTTP is for reading, and then anything that's been written can also be read from index. So index is read-write. This is just read. This combines the two, so you can kind of use one for write and one for read. And then the mountable file system allows me to have several. So I have the mounting of the overlay file system, that's the root one. But then I also I use the ISO and the zip FSs whenever I want to open up an ISO or zip file. And those also get put in the mountable. So I'm already using a bunch of these backends. And basically the one I wanted to do was for the file system access API. So I have a little Red Bull while I'm at it too. So one of the big caveats with this, and a reason I was hesitant to even work on implementing it, is it doesn't have very good browser support. I mean, in a way it does and in a way it doesn't. It's supported in Chrome, so it's supported in Edge. I'm not sure if it's supported mobilely. On mobile. I would say probably not. But in the end, I just decided, like, even if it was just people using Chrome, just like me, I think that's a large percentage of the people that do browsing. Like if you look at the statistics for browsers, I think it'll still be more than 50% of people on the web that would be able to use this feature, even with just that one browser supported, because it's just a popular browser. So, and it happens to be one that's kind of forward thinking when it comes to the APIs. So if I go to, here's the site I typically use to know about what browsers support what, caniuse.com. And as you see here for the file system access API, we got Edge and we got Chrome that it supports. And the cool thing about this is it supports it with no flags. So no one has to do anything special to their Chrome when they visit my site to be able to use this. So I guess it says right here 30% of all users. Is that what it's saying? I guess if you just track desktop. So in desktop, there we go. So just adding that feature, I get 73% basically of desktops. Just based on people that use Edge and people that use Chrome. Kind of shows you that Firefox and Safari aren't as popular. When you throw mobile into it, it's no support for mobile. So the average total is like 30%. Got a message here from Abrar, my weekly viewer here with his game suggestions. Jelly Mario. Okay, let's look it up. I'm gonna look up one because sometimes last season week you suggested a million of them. I think like 5 or 6. Jelly Mario. Okay, looks cool. Right. I've been hesitant for the stuff that's very like intellectual property, especially Nintendo. I just don't want to put too much stuff in there and get taken down. That's been at my hesitance with a lot of the games you've suggested. And that's why I've only, the games that I have mostly right now are ones that were like fully open source. Like even Space Cadets. I wouldn't say Space Cadets pushing it because it is open source. It's from this GitHub guy. That's another thing I have to add to my next stream, or just for future ones, is credits. I need a credits like markdown file. Or something. I need something that people are going to easily be able to find to be able to credit all these open source projects that I'm using. Not that I don't mention them a million times, and I'm not going out of my way to hide them. Only when they interfere with the aesthetic I'm looking for do I ever just kind of like tweak them. But it's never to hide anything. I'm not that type of person. Anyways, let's get back to this file system API. So let's say we got, so for desktops, this features will be used in like 70% even, let's just say. That's pretty cool. So 70% of the people visiting my site on a computer are likely to be able to use that feature. And what the feature is, it basically lets me use a local folder in my fake OS, which is pretty crazy, I think. And it also allows me to get past some limits I've had. Like, I wanted to try to run different ISOs in my x86 emulator, but if you drag them into the fake OS, they get written as indexdb, and indexdb essentially has a 2 GB maximum for a website. Basically, if when you dig into it, at least in my experience, that's how it's been, is that there's this 2 GB wall you kind of run into. But doing it this other way through the file system access API, I could just have it locally an ISO folder, and I could load 15, 20 gig, whatever, whatever ISO I can put locally in Windows, I'd be able to access. Another limitation of this beyond the browser support is also that you can't share system files. So I couldn't just like share the C drive or something like that, or even like the Windows drive, the System32, or even desktop.ini files. It doesn't. I noticed that was another thing, is that it literally, if you request a desktop.ini, it's like, no, I'm not going to even look for that. So it's got some weird limitations like that. Firefox doesn't support it, Safari doesn't support it, but it's still pretty cool. And where I'm going to add it, I already have, if you press add file, I use the HTML file system API to upload stuff. So let me just pick something here. I got prompted. Oh, is it broken? What? Open is not a function. Oh, no, incorrect. What? Open transferred. What happened here? That's odd. Is that a bug or is that just something else? Let me try to open something. That opened. So open exists. I think I must have something broken here that I didn't realize. Well, that's, oh, cool, in quotes. I found a bug. That doesn't look too hard to fix. I'm not going to fix it this episode, but let's write it down. So add file doesn't work, basically, period. So add file is using the HTML5 file system API, which allows you to pick a file, but you can't just pick a folder and then dig into it and then like have your website hook it. So that's the feature I'm adding. And I'll fix add file later. It's not related to the file picking. It's related to probably some stale reference to the process open function, I would imagine. So what we can do here is there's a function called, where the heck is it here? Show directory or something? Got a message here from Crepinson Productions saying, hi. Hey, happy to have you. Thanks for checking us out. Here it is, show directory picker. So that's essentially a key part of what I did for this backend. Let's get to my PR anyway. So this is in the browser FS GitHub repository. And if you look at their pull request, I've actually created a new pull request 3 days ago, file system access backend, where I kind of, I wrote this. This is my attempt to use the file system access API as a backend for browser FS. I'm open to any comments/suggestions. I avoided async await as the build command started complaining about generators, which is true. I guess another solution would have been to just upgrade some of the build stuff to allow me to use generators. But rather than that, I kind of just got into a little bit of callback hell and just went with promises. Because for the most part, it was straightforward, which we'll take a peek at the code here. But yeah, I added functions like rename, write, stat, exists, read file, unlink, remove directory, make directory, read directory. Some of these were harder, actually, like rename. There's a function for renaming a file, but there isn't anything to rename a directory. So I actually had to go through the thing of like, try to rename it, have it fail because it's a directory, and then start like a loop where you go to every file, rename all of those to the new folder, which you have to make. And then at the point where it's like empty because you renamed every file, then you can delete the original folder. And that's essentially the same thing as just renaming it, but it's a lot more work. I got a message here from Abra22 again. Add Sonic Chaos or I will unsubscribe you. Okay, well, Abra, you've been a bit pushy lately with all these games. I mean, I'll write it on the notes, but like I said, Sonic, that's another one where it's like, I don't want to get in a fight with Sega over adding some game that I've never even heard of, Sonic Chaos. So if you want to subscribe to me, feel free. I'm not going to dig into each subscriber and be at their will, but I've appreciated all the games you suggest, and I actually have Sonic Chaos noted because I feel like you've mentioned that before, but don't worry, like honestly, it's a good opportunity for you to learn how to code and add it to my app. It is an open source app. I'd love to see it. I would love to see a PR from anybody for any game, but especially to see one from you where you've actually PR'd one of these 50 games you've suggested to me. That'd be cool. So, but yeah, I'll make a note of that anyways. I already have a note of Sonic Chaos. So to get types working, I had to import this WICG file system access thing. And I also had to upgrade TypeScript because it was like complaining about types for some permission thing. So I've already got 2 people that seem to appreciate it. I don't know if they've tried it. Be cool to hear some feedback from them if they had. Otherwise, this seemed to be fine for a PR. And like I said here, basically the way I set up my file system is that you have to prompt the user with a show directory picker, and then once they pick something, you'll get this handle, which is like a file system directory handle type, and then you just give that to the file system. And like browser, that's how BrowserFS works in general. Is you create a file system, let's say that mountable one, and you just have to give it a few options like whatever it happens to need, like let's say for the HTTP one, it needs that JSON file to know the structure of where to do the HTTP request. Or in the case of this file system access, the starting point needs to be the first directory. And then from there, I can kind of take over. And when the user tries to read a directory, like a subdirectory, I can go from that first handle and dig into the handles kind of, which is the way I've decided to do it. Let's look at the code here and take a peek at it. So I updated those types, like I said. This is the meat of it, but let's just ignore this for 1 second, see what else there is here. Pretty much nothing else. This is the yarn file, lock file, that's irrelevant. And this is just me adding it to the list. So it's really just this one file, 332 lines that I wrote. And yeah, how to explain it. I mean, it's based on some of the other backend files. For the async iterator, again, because it was complaining about generators, I had to kind of make my custom iteration logic because I couldn't use the for await loop because Webpack just Webpack wasn't set up properly to do that, or Babel or whatever the heck it is they're using. I don't even know. I also had to add this array buffer because for some reason global this.file doesn't mention array buffer, but it does exist. I found a lot of mention that it should exist at least. So maybe it only exists in Chrome, but this only works in Chrome, so that wouldn't matter. But I found that this exists in several places, so I think it's just out of the type right now. It's not in the type. Made a little error handler just to check this one custom type of error called not found, in which I respond with the BrowserFS version of that error, which is their not found error with the path. Otherwise, I just pass the error directly. This is that custom iterator that I had to do. So the directory keys comes from this file system keys iterator. These types are the actual types. I didn't make those up. So these are the types that come from like Google or whoever it is that worked on these APIs. And then rather than do a for await loop, I just do the next, which returns a promise. And then I say, then you get back done and you get value. I say, well, if it's finally done, we kick in that callback finally. No error, and here's the keys. And if it's not done, then we add to the keys, which is starts empty with that value. And then we just iterate over, so it's recursive in that way because it's iterate. And then if there's any catches along the way, then we handle the error. This is where I would have loved to use async await more, because these catches are all over the place and they start to get a little ugly looking. But I just wanted to cover my bases as much as possible. So anytime I'm doing promises in this BrowserFS library, I thought if I'm going to PR this, I'll just try to make it as like idiot-proof as possible and not miss any obvious bugs or anything. But it might have went overkill on it, honestly. That's it for the keys to array. Here's the basic file system class. So options start empty, passes in that handle, and that's how you make the original new file system access. That's this file system. So it just takes the handle as the constructor. Where's the constructor here? Here it is. So it gets that handle and then sets that internally as the root directory for its file system. So from its perspective, that's the root directory. Get name. These are all basic commands. So here's where I started doing the commands. This is boilerplate for that backend stuff, but here's where I started doing commands. So I actually made this function called get handle. That's a key part of it, was that I made a function where you just give me a path, and then based on that and that initial root handle, I'll dig in based on I'll use the file system access API to get wherever you need, you know, to get you a directory handle or to get you a file handle if that's the case. So where did I create this darn thing? There it is here. So it's a little beefy of a command, a function. Beefy in that it's a bit long. It's not that long, I guess. Let me zoom out slightly. Is it still legible like that? I don't know. Maybe I'll just go back to zoomed in. So you take in the path and a callback, which is kind of how browser FS likes it. And you can return a file system handle. And a file system handle is another one of those types that I inherited. And it's like a type that can be a directory or a file. So if it's the root path, then okay, we already have that handle. Return that one. Otherwise, I kind of just do this walking of the path kind of thing, where I take the path, split it by its parts, ignoring the first part, which is empty, because it starts with a slash. So I get that as the path parts, and then I have this recursive function called getHandleParts, and it kind of breaks apart the array every time it goes, where it gets the first part of the path, which is the path part that it's on right now, and then we get the remaining parts via this spread operator to get all the whatever's left in the array. So we set the walked path to the combined of the path part and what's been walked already, starting at nothing. And then there's another function here that kind of continues walking through the path. We'll get to that in a second. Let's just see what the rest is here. So we get the handle, assuming it exists. Wait, what is this? Walked path. Where are we at walked path? So would walked path be set? I guess, yeah, at this point, walked path would have been the root one. And then after here, when it continues the walk, it updates walked path. So walked path exists always. Here it makes the assumption that it's a directory handle. This was the way, because it's not easy to detect what type it is, or I couldn't figure that out, but like without at least doing the first request, it doesn't tell you the type. Like you have to know it's a directory, so I'll do the directory request, which is get directory handle. The other one being get file handle. There's no like get handle type command. So what I just do is I get directory handle, and if that fails and I catch it, I check if it's a type mismatch error, and if it is, then that means it's a file. And then I basically do the same command but with get file. And in both cases, when either succeeds, I do that continue walk command, where I update the walked path to say we got the new handle, we update the path, we set that handle, and then if there's any more parts, we do the if there's no parts left, we're done, and we return the handle to the path that was originally requested, because now we filled that in. But if there is more parts, then we once again go get handle parts, and we start this function over again, where we get the remaining parts. And that's the basics of that. There's another error type here that can happen. Name is not allowed. Wait a minute. I think that makes sense. Because name is not allowed, I thought that happens when you request a file, but I think it just happens in general if the name is invalid. I noticed this with that desktop.ini. That was something that it tried to request and it failed on that. Well, anyways, that allowed me to figure out that there's this error, but I'm just wondering if it needs to be in this catch as well. Maybe not. Could be an oversight on my part, though. I guess if... Yeah, I think so, because even if you request desktop ini here, it's not going to say type mismatch, because that would have revealed information, even that. And it doesn't even allow that. There's just this, like, rule that there's, like, this list of named specific things that you can't request. Like, maybe if... Yeah, I'm trying to think of other examples. Maybe desktop ini is the only good one. Maybe that's one of the few that they've got in there somewhere. Anyways, that was something I found out. So that's get... So basically, they all work on get handle. So having get handle to be able to get a path that gives me that directory handle, that's how everything else works, basically. Other than that, it's just kind of implementing the logic of doing these tasks. So you see there's quite a bit of code there, but it's like, okay, so I have the handle to do rename. If I get an error, then I return the error. Otherwise, if I have the handle and it's a directory, I mean, that's that complicated state where it's a little harder to do. If we ignore that one for a second, the file one looks longer, but that's just this callback hell. That could have been like 6 lines if I could have used async await. Yeah, this is the harder one when it's a directory, because then I have to read the old directory, make the new one, the destination. And if there's no files left, then I delete the old directory. But if there's files, I have to go through those files, rename those, then delete that folder. And if I rename those, it starts the whole loop over again. So if this finds a directory, then it has to go in that directory, and so on and so on. So that's recursive too, because this is rename and this dot rename is itself. And in the file scenario, that one's a lot simpler because there's this thing called get file, where once I get it, there's a rename function, isn't there? That must be what it is. What is that? No, I guess there isn't a rename function even. Yeah, so instead of a rename function, what I get the file handle. So I have the old file data with that array buffer. I get the handle of the new destination's parent folder directory, because that's how once you have that inside that directory, then you can request a file in that directory. And in that directory, you request a file that doesn't exist yet, but you specify this create true. So that gives you a handle to a file that just got made. So then you've got the new handle. And once you have the new handle, you can create a writable. And then you have this writable. Then you take the old file and you get that array buffer to get the data for it. Then once you got the buffer and you got the writable, then you can do write the buffer. Then you can close the writable. Then you can delete the old file. That's how you do a rename. So, and then I try to catch the errors along the way. For write file, I think that one maybe is easier. I don't know. I think it's the same kind of idea. Yeah, I get the parent directory for it so that I can do the get file handle on its directory. I create it if it doesn't exist. Does that make sense? Oh yeah, because this is write file. Yeah. So almost like that's the default probably that would occur. I guess I could overwrite a file with write file, perhaps. Yeah, I guess I could. I think the code would be the same either way. So yeah, same thing. I create the writable, get the writable. I have the data because the data gets passed in this time instead of having to be read. So it's like a cut down version of what rename was doing there. Rename is probably one of the more complicated ones actually. Stat, that's an easy one for statistics. So once you get that handle again, if it's a directory handle, then we don't actually get any useful statistics. So this is kind of the generic return to do with browserfs for a directory where you don't know anything, is to kind of say it's this 4096 using the new stats. And this new stats function is a browserfs function that they have. Actually, I think it's just the generic node stats function, or like just the generic stats function. I mean, they might have implemented their own version of it anyways. What was this? This is for stat. If it's a file, I do get file. And then when you do get file, beyond getting the data, you also get last modified and size, which are the only two pieces of information of use that it gives you. So I put those in the stat. So that allows us to know the modified time and the size, which is cool. Exist is really easy. I try to get the handle. And if there's no error, basically I got a handle. So, although, yeah, maybe I should say or no handle. I wonder if there could be no error and no handle. I don't think so. But better safe than sorry. I probably could have coded it that way. Open file, we got, so if this one gets a file, it should be a file for open file. We get it, we read it, and then this is a way I found versus from looking at different backend examples. This was an easy way to make the file return that browserfs expects. It was like this no sync file command that they have. The flags come already passed in from the function. Same with path. The stats function we already know from before with the size and the modified. And that was the data. That's it. Yeah, that was a simple one. What was this for? For open. Wait, what's open file again? To read it, right. That's for reading. Duh. Unlink is like delete. In the case of remove directory and delete, unlink is like supposed to be like delete file, I guess. I'm not sure. Basically, they're the same thing in this case. So I did the unlink version because that sounded more generic, and then for removing directories, we just use unlink. So that we just focus on this. If it's a directory, so I get the parent of it. Wait a minute. Does that work? Oh yes, yes. So I need the parent directory in order to make a request to remove an entry in that directory. But remove entry is generic. So for remove entry, I could be specifying a folder or a file. I just get the base name of whatever the path is, be it a folder or a file, and I say recursively delete that. If it's a folder, recursive. If it's a file, it's just going to be gone. And that's all you need for deleting. Make directory was a little trickier. So this was my version of decoding the mode that they give me, because you're supposed to say this as a number for it to accept the class that it created, but it is not a number as far as I can see. So I ended up making it an any, which it also the class allowed, and then I had to kind of specify, that it has all these things in this sloppy way. Optional chaining also didn't seem to be supported, but this was the only time where it really came up anyways. What do I do here for make directory? I get it to see if it exists, and if it exists, I send back the exists error. I guess I could have ran the this.exists in this case. Why didn't I? Oh, because it can exist, but I might still want to overwrite it, I think. Although this still could have been a this.exists, I feel like, but whatever. It works fine as get handle. Get handle's simple. I use get handle whenever possible because it's a simple command I made. And then yeah, make directories easy enough. Get directory handle, same as like get file handle, where you can specify this create true if it doesn't exist. Read directory. You can get this keys where it'll give you the names of the files, and that's where I use my keys to array function that I made to go through the iterator. And then we get handle. That's it. Oof, that was a lot. So that took 30 minutes to explain, basically, it feels like. Let's merge this thing. Let's get this patch and put it in. So I'd cloned that browserfs repo, forked it actually into my GitHub repo. Oh, darn it. I saved the patch file, but I closed it before it was done saving because it's actually kind of a big file. You gotta wait. There we go. That time it finished. So I'm downloading the patch file, and I'm gonna apply the patch file that has my changes, because I've built the browserfs minified version again with my changes. Oh, it's complaining about package.json. I don't care about that at all. Let's just wait. Why is it complaining about package.json? What even changed in there? I'm trying to remember. Oh, right. I added these types. Okay, we'll add these. I'll make a note to add that. But for now, in this patch, I'm just going to delete this because the versions are all out of whack and it's getting confused by that. I think I can just do the cut right here, maybe? I always hesitate where I should start. Is it at it's at the diff, so I should start there, actually. Get rid of that one, and then get rid of the yarn file as well. Those were some minor changes. Also get rid of the reference to it in the patch, although I don't think that matters. Now I can apply the patch. Nice. So let's look at this patch here, and then let's also do the yarn, add the types that we need. And let's just see what I've kind of added to this. So in the left click menu now, I've taken the root fs, which allows me to look at the mount list. Why is that? Remote mount. Ah, yes. Because if I make a remote mount folder, it will appear on like whatever folder you mount the directory to. And and then if you right click that, it gives you options that you should not have, like cut, copy, rename, that kind of thing. I didn't want that. So in the right click menu, I've added, I have to look at the root file system mount list and see, is this directory one of the file system access directories? If it is, we don't show any option other than open. So that's part one. The types, like I said, well, let's wait till we see where I use the types. Here, I've made a function called mapfs. Let me double check that first. Let's start with where mapfs is. Actually, let's start somewhere. The browserfs lib, I'm just going to include that. That's the minified browser library. Here's where the file system is used. So you see here, here's where I originally load browserfs, bfs require fs. I also now export the file system access file, which is a file system itself. Confusing name, kind of. I've created a custom type for it so that the create function takes that handle option like we saw. I use the type here where I extract it. I updated this type as well to have the get name function for the or just to reference that the get name function existed. We already knew it existed, or I don't know if we did. I didn't know, but on the rootfs mount map, there is a function called get name where you can know the name. That's how I look here to see get name. I see, oh, it's the file system access file system. Don't show options like rename. And that's mostly all I did here, was just updated some types, actually. Yeah, that's literally all I needed to do here. Update the types and then export the file system for use in another place, which was here in the main file system itself. Here I've created this new function called mapfs. And mapfs shows the directory picker, which is the file system access API, gets the handle, and then it starts a promise that make sure that the wait, this is bad. Maybe I should have done this before. I guess this could be reject here. I need to have a reject if this fails. If for some reason you didn't do the handle, then it should be rejected here. Otherwise, that promise kind of gets stuck. There we go. I think that's okay. Or maybe, how else could I do this? I could do it. I could invert it and then make it like a little bit cleaner. Let's try that. I'm gonna say if it doesn't equal that, then reject and make it a one-liner, and then this can go back a little bit. There we go. How does that look? That's a little bit better. So if for some reason the handle isn't a file system directory, then just reject this promise. Otherwise, we do that creation with the handle, and if there's any issues, once again, we reject. Otherwise, we just mount it like normal. So there wasn't too much to that. Here also, I had an effect for when a folder is closed for like the ISOFS or the ZipFS. In those scenarios where it's closed, you can unmount it. But when you unmount the file system access, then the user has to re-request permission, which I don't like. So I've disabled file system access getting unmounted ever. So once you go to the website and you mount it, it'll only unmount if you leave the website or if you refresh it, not for opening and closing the folder. That's it. That was all that one is. And then on the folder right-click menu, I added, that's where you can do it now. So before it was just down here as that add file command. Now I call it the fs commands, and I check here first to make sure that the command is supported. So if you don't have file system handle in your browser within the window object, then it won't work. So if you do have it, we add the add file command and the map directory command. Otherwise, just the add file command like before. The add file command hasn't changed, but the map directory command is that command now, where it does the mapfs of the URL, and then once it's mapped, it updates the folder. So you visually see it updated. So that's part of it. And did we use the file system access API in the end? I'm not sure we did. Oh yeah. I think we're just like using it without using it here. Like right here, I'm using it. So if I hover over this, does it know about this? Come on. If I hover over this, yeah, if I go to definition, here we go. It is coming from this. So I remember before installing this, it was complaining that it didn't know what the heck that was. So there's all the changes. I actually want to go back to our commit history now. There was one other improvement I think I did, if not two. So that's the same as, so pinball icons, that's not related. Monaco, no. Here we go. I updated the icon too. I thought this was just a little tweak. Show mounted icon. Let's get that patch too. Is it a minor one? I'd like to apply that one to this because they're basically related. Oops, that's the same patch file. There we go. Nice. We can see the different changes here. So these are all separate files, it looks like. In the constants, I've now got another folder type called the mounted folder. So there's like, you can have the new folder icon, there's a new folder icon. Or no, sorry, I worded that wrong. There's a folder icon, there's a new folder icon that's like a different style, and now there's the mounted folder icon. And the mounted folder looks like this. I decided to go with that icon. That's very similar to when you mount a folder in Windows. Surprise, surprise. In the file info section, I now pull in rootfs. And what do I do with it? I guess I just pull it in here so that I can pass it along to the get info without extension command, because that command needs to know something. Let's go check out that command. So there it just got passed through. Here I think is where it's used. Yeah, here's the get info without extension. Here's where I now pull in rootfs as well. And with rootfs, I check to see if it's in the mount maps, the path. And if it is, then I use the mounted icon. Otherwise, the new folder icon. Otherwise, the folder icon. Yeah. So before I had it just the two logic, where if you want to use the new type of icon, we do that. Otherwise, this. Now I've made it a function, and I've got 3 scenarios. And the first one is that mounted one, where I look at the mount map with the path. And then here is the same kind of thing, I think. Yeah, this is for File Explorer. This is for the program that you view the files in. Its little system icon also had this logic, I think. I think it must have. Yeah. So the File Explorer doesn't ever show the new type of folder icon. It's only shown in the start menu. So I only had to handle here that the File Explorer can also be showing the mounted icon. Okay, so that's everything. What did I call this commit originally? This was called the mount directory from localfs. Let's make that in a better sounding commit. Let's just say added file system access API. And now let's look at this powerful thing. So I don't think when I open the directory, you're going to be able to see the pop-up I get, but you'll see the result. So let me try to pick a directory that's not too wonky on you guys here. Okay, we'll do my proof of concept one. So here's the option now. I go map directory. I popped up a directory selector for me. You guys don't see it, but it popped it up for me. I'm gonna pick for the folder. I'm gonna pick my pictures folder, I guess. Do I have anything in there? No. Oh, I do. Here I got my old. Yeah, these pictures should be okay. Let's pick that folder. So now it's asking me in another pop. Oh, you can see this Chrome pop up. Localhost will be able to view files in Lady's pictures until you close it. This is my dog, Lady, so it's just my pictures of my dog. So I press view file, view files, and now you see it made a directory here, like a folder that has the same name of what I picked locally on my local file system. And now when I double click it, look at that. It opens and it even makes the thumbnails. So that's reading files directly from my local file system. And you can see it's just pictures of my dog from a long time ago. I think I can do 2 of them. I haven't actually tried doing 2 at the same time. Let's actually mount my main data list folder here. Select this folder. This has all my different data list OS stuff on it. So this folder here. So there you see, I have another folder from my file system. And this has all sorts of stuff, you know, from different, like my pictures of my board previously. So all this is just coming right off my file system, but it looks like a folder in Windows. And then you see it's got the little mapped picture there. And I can view all these like in my OS. So I can look at these images that are coming from the computer. And it has all the information as well. You see here, it knows the data. So let's say this Core Plus, or let's say DSL here. I can right click this and open it. And I can actually run that Linux ISO. So it's reading that Linux ISO directly from my file system on my real computer off of this folder now. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I can do all sorts of stuff with this. I can rename things too. So I can call this, let's see, hello. And it asks me again. You see it's asking me another thing. We'll be able to edit, save changes. So you see I can do renames. I can do deletes. I can make a new folder. And all of this stuff is reflected literally on my local machine. So I can see it folders side by side, like a Windows folder and a fake Windows folder. And they actually change and interact. So there's that new folder. And I can make files in that. I can take them and actually drag them out, and that actually literally deleted it from your local file system. So that's where you have to be careful, because this is fake in here, but this is real. So be careful. Like, just going in here and pressing delete to a bunch of stuff is not something you can undo. Versus here, I could go into my fake folders and delete all of this, and then just do a reload, and it can all be back if I wanted to. And you see this fully booted Linux, and it's still running on these shared folders, and I got 2 shared folders now running at the same time. Oh, oh no, that's just it loading X windows. I guess it has like a little weird transparency thing that occurs. And now I'm running damn small Linux. I'm running Linux in my fake OS as well. So that's kind of neat. Just to keep adding to this thing forever. And this has network support too, I believe. So I can go to real websites if you wanted to. Maybe I can go to my old... No, that won't work in this browser. That browser is super old. What's it called? Dillo. I think Dillo doesn't have support for much of anything. Okay, so that's a cool feature, right? I think that the people are going to really like that, and I think it's going to add a lot to what can be done. Oh, here's a fun little meta thing for it. Here's one I wanted to try. You guys will get a kick out of this one. So I'm going to map the directory of what I'm actually working on right now, like Inception style. So the folder is called X on my drive. Like if you go to my code here, CX, that's where it is, and I'm literally sharing that same drive. So now this is the source code for itself, and it's looking at its own source code while on my system I'm running Node, so that when anything file changes, it'll actually refresh right away. So now what I can do is I could go into components, system, start menu, no, not start menu, sorry, taskbar, clock, styled clock, and let me open this in my Monaco code editor here. And we're going to do some fixes to Monaco code editor today because right now it didn't detect the language, but it will in the future because that's just a bug. So we're in the code editor here, right? So this is for the styled clock. This is for this clock that's running right in front of us, which is kind of trippy. So let's just change it. Its color here, color right here. We'll say to red, and I'll press save. Save changes, yeah. And look at that, it actually changed. So I'm actually editing the code in its own environment. I can undo that. It'll go back to being whatever its color it was before. So I think in the future, if I could get, there's still a few missing pieces, but at some point I could start doing these streams from within itself, where we could do all the code within like my Monaco editor, I guess. I mean, we could do git apply too, because I actually have a full working version of git in here in my terminal. I have like git, isomorphic git version here. Yeah, git version isomorphic 10.1.10.1. Currently, I'm only working with the checkout and the clone commands, but I could do git apply to that directory, I think. Oh, that's a good question. I wonder if I can read these directories from within here. So where would it be? CD desktop, CDX? Oh, I can. Yeah. So I can actually see the real fake directory. So this directory that it's listing, everything that's happening in this window is like half fake, half real. So there's a lot going on here. This dir output is my output. I made this dir command. It's happening via files by like 6 different things. It's so crazy. This is where things are starting to come together. So this is where when we do the release party, we'll play around with this stuff more, and I hope that we'll have a lot more viewers during that time to kind of mess with it as well. So as I was saying here, let's watch. I'll delete all these icons, delete everything. Right, it doesn't delete mounts because mounts are, like I said, they have the basic right-click menus. And then if I just click refresh here, it's like it all never happened, including the mounts. So that was a fun one. And I think we're ready to commit one of the biggest features I've probably ever added to this thing. Honestly, I think it's one of the cooler ones. Especially because it's like an API that's not supported. I almost feel like I kind of went out there with it and getting them and adding it to BrowserFS. Hopefully people will like that. I don't know who still uses BrowserFS. I think it's great. I love using it. It's pretty cool. It was even really easy to make the backend. I'm actually planning to make another backend that's going to be pretty cool. I might even have it in the next couple weeks for this libarchive.js. So this one can support zip, 7-zip, rar, and tar files. And I was thinking, I already have zipfs and I already have isofs, so I can already open isos and zips. But and for rars, I have something that I added to extract rars. But for being able to open 7-zip, rars, and tars in the file explorer and manipulate it as if it's one of those backend file systems, that would be cool. And I don't think it would be too hard. Like basically the same thing I did for the other file system I could do here. So like there's this lib archive open. I almost wonder if I could just use lib archive. Like maybe I'll make a backend called archive, lib archive, and you provide the archive bundle or whatever. You initialize this and just pass it along to the file system. Because I don't think I don't know if putting this library in browserfs makes sense. Maybe. In the case of the file system access API, it was an easier choice. Anyways, that's another backend I'd like to make that I think would be fun. Oh, did I commit that change in the end? Yeah, I did. All right, I noted it here. Let's continue. Better pinball icons. Yeah, I had access to better pinball icons before, and I just wasn't using them for some reason, so let's use them. And as far as what I mean by pinball, it's the 3D Space Cadet game here. If you go to games, you see this like old 16-bit looking icon. The icon that I got that from actually had a much higher quality version of a pinball icon that I, for some reason, decided not to use. But now we're going to use it. So I'll apply that patch. Better pinball. Let's say better Space Cadet icons. Space Cadet icon. And we can take it. Oh, darn it. I wasn't in the code here. Sorry, I lost track of which screen I was flipped to. But all I did is applied the patch that had those two files. They're right here. I added the commit message. I'm going to add it to the show notes, stream notes, whatever you call it. And let's just see if that's already updated. So now I refresh here. And let's see if it's a better icon. Yeah, it's a little shinier, a little more modern looking. That also appears in the 16-bit one. Basically the same otherwise. And I actually got that icon directly from like demo.exe or wherever the heck had the icon. It might have even been in that GitHub repo, actually. If so, thanks to them for that. Commit this one and move on. Fix Monaco language detection. Yes, you saw that a second ago where I opened a TS file and it didn't really know what was up with it. We are going to fix that. I think I literally do not recall one line of code as to what I did to fix it. So let's take a look together. Paste the wording here. So in the config, I think I updated the config. I ran like, with the version of Monaco I had, there was a few more supported extensions. So I reran the command that lists all the extensions. And then I just updated this big array. And it ended up only changing these few lines. So I don't use flow or pla or proto files, but Monaco supports them, so hey, why not? I just keep adding stuff to this list that Monaco supports. That was change number 1. Got another message from Abra. I missed it here. Can you make a new app Discord on WidgetBot? Possibly. I don't do much on Discord. Actually, another cool app idea I had though for my app is I found a way to be able to do IRC with no backend on my end, where you can use WebSockets to connect to actual IRC servers that exist that also have IRC ports, but do accept WebSockets, because there's a few IRC server software systems out there that actually do have WebSocket support now. And I found a very basic proof of concept JavaScript client to do IRC. And I've been considering making my own little IRC system and maybe skinning it like Slack or something, or like Microsoft Teams, or I don't know. So that'd be kind of cool. It'd be like a chat app, but the back end would be powered by IRC, and I would just have to do the UI for it and kind of link up the WebSocket stuff, and maybe allow users to pick different IRC servers, because there's a few public WebSocket IRC servers out there. They have almost nobody on them. They're not like cool ones like irc.dal.net or something. But at the same time, I just want a place where people that come to my site can post stuff that's on the internet in a server environment where someone else can also talk. And people that are on my site can be like, oh, hey, you're here. I'm here too. Cool. Blah, blah, blah. Hopefully there won't be too much abuse on there. I mean, maybe that's just always what happens. Maybe then it'll mirror my experience with IRC when I was a kid and I got on there and realized what a mess the internet is, especially in the holes of IRC. Anyways, here's my detect language fix. Simple enough, I think. Before it was too simple. If it wasn't in that big list, I would look in the custom list, and then I would send undefined. And undefined usually meant auto detect, and auto detect was working, But for some reason or another, I don't know, I think I messed it up somehow. Auto detect has stopped working. And then I just decided, you know what, rather than fix that, I'll just make a detection system because it can't be that hard. And it wasn't. When you load Monaco, there's this object called languages that has a function called getLanguages that gives you every language in a huge array of objects. There's like 80 of them. And then I had to list through them, look at their extensions array, find the extension. Then once I have that, I have all I need to get the ID. And with that, I've detected the language. Easy enough, I guess. I think I use this exact same thing in a couple commits from now. Possibly to... Do I? Yeah, I feel like I do. I use this again to even further improve the visual. But we'll get there. This fixes the language detection. Let's test it out. I'm going to drag a TS file on there. Let me find one. It shouldn't be that hard, but when you want to find one, you end up looking in all the wrong places for some random reason. Here's a TSX file. That should do. So I'm going to open this now in Monaco. There we go. So now right away, boom, it knew it was TypeScript. It showed TypeScript on the bottom here. You got all the colorings. It doesn't know what to do about some of this stuff. Because this is Monaco Editor, we get all the same visuals as you'd get with VS Code. So some things that are missing from my IDE, a lot. Tabs, I could add that. I know how to do tabs with this. Terminal, I know how to do terminal. I already have a terminal. I could basically just take this component, stop making it transparent, and just put it, like, let's do it. I could just do it right here. Basically be like that. I put that there. Oops. All right, I have it as locked aspect ratio right now. That would have to change. Let's just say like that. It'd be something like this, I guess. Not the best looking right now. Let me put that there. And then this at the bottom. There we go. So that's how I could implement a terminal, I guess. Is that this component would just be something I could attach as like a little draggable bar inside Monaco. So I already have the ability to do that. The file explorer, like the list view of the files. I currently don't even support opening a directory, really. I'm almost happy with it being like this. Like, this is my idea of like Notepad plus VS Code, like a cut down version of VS Code that's almost like Notepad, but has some cool stuff. That's kind of what I was going for with this. Like, you get the mini map, you get the syntax highlighting, you get some cool stuff like line information, selected information. I'm also going to add this episode a prettier button. So if you've got minified code, you can press a little button and it'll auto fix it. Kind of like how it does in DevTools. There's a button for that. Language detection, editing. So yeah, it's just a basic version of Notepad, like a Notepad, kind of like Notepad++, but Notepad++ is pretty darn powerful. Mine has none of those cool features that they have. Maybe one day. Anywho, let's get back to whatever the heck it was I was doing. Fix Monaco language detection. Commit it. Add it to the notes. Move on. Commit it. Add it to the notes. Move on. Drink water. That's another thing too. So I've actually done all of these now. Shrink icons more. Sure, why not? I noticed that I was able to optimize a few icons a tiny bit more. I'm not sure why. If like maybe I overlooked optimizing them before, but I was able to make them a tiny bit smaller. I think I was just doing this when I was bored, just throwing them in File Optimizer and seeing if they made things smaller. I don't even know. Yeah, I guess it changed 17 files. Hey, if they're smaller, great. Does it even say? It doesn't tell you in VS Code they're smaller, but it was lossless compression anyways, so I haven't visually lost any quality. And in that way, I figure, hey, why not? I mean, you could do something like that. Like, let's say you're the kind of person that's like, oh, I don't want to add a library because it's going to add a lot of junk. And it's like a 15 kilobyte library, or let's say 100 kilobytes even. You could easily chop down 100 kilobytes from images if you're the kind of, if you're like a lot of people are, where they don't really optimize their images as much as they could. Not to say that I do, because I probably optimize my PNGs as much as possible. That being said, PNG is not the most optimal format. I could move to WebP. avif, all sorts of different things. That gets into a whole other thing. That's harder than code, is to like make an image pipeline almost. I mean, there's solutions out there, but I would rather do it myself. So that'd probably be something I would like to get into at some point. I might add to the board. Let's make a note for it, I guess. Image pipeline from source to WebP, avif, whatever, PNG. Basically what I want, I would rather in the repo have high quality icons for all my image resources, and then more spam. Have high quality icon resources, and then in the build command maybe, or at some point you can like generate resources. Let's say there's a button for that or command, and it would make all the different formats the way that I want. And then I would have a component that could use the different image formats depending on which the browser supports it. That would be the ideal scenario. Currently, the way I do it is I just pick the source image, make the different size versions I want, run them through optimization software, and then commit them. But that's a lot of manual work. I'd rather just put a high quality image on there and let something automatic do a good job with it. Someday. Add prettier to IDE. Right, this is that thing I was just talking about that I added. So prettier, you guys know prettier. This is another funny one almost, is that like I was already using prettier on my project in the dev dependencies, and I actually moved it into the dependencies, and now I use it in the app. So it actually is a dependency in my case. It's not a mistake that prettier is a dependency versus a Git dependency. Sorry, a dev dependency. Oh, what now? Again, it's complaining about the package JSON. Because the versions aren't right. That's why I should actually not do upgrades throughout the week, because it messes with my patches. That's a good point. I gotta keep an eye on that and stop doing that. Let's just find the change here and add it ourselves. So prettier, all I did is just moved it, but it's complaining because of all these reference points that have changed slightly. Let's just ignore that and do that one ourselves then. That's a minor change. Oh, line 146. Oh yeah, I need a new line here. Is that it? Yeah. Gotta end with a new line. Okay, we'll do that ourselves now for prettier. Let's try yarn, add prettier. Does doing that move it to dependencies? I don't think so. I think I have to do a little bit more. Where's my... Oh, just down further. So yeah, that does not move it there. I wonder if this is simple to do. I want to add it as a dev dependency. Is there like a... Not as a dev dependency. How do you do the not as a dev dependency command? Well, I know one surefire way to do it. We remove it, and then we add it again, but don't say as dev. So now when I add it, it should show up here in this bot. Yep, there we go. That's easier than trying to figure out the command to just move it up there without the delete. Now it's a dependency. Now let's see what the other changes are and why I needed it as a dependency. So because it's dependency, because now I'm... Oh wait, that's actually a type still. Where's where I'm importing it? Here we go. Wait, actually not there either. Wait a minute. When do I need it as... Ah, here, right. Now I import it dynamically because I don't want it increasing the bundle size. Let's open up... Let's start with where I added it on the status bar. So on the status bar, I just added a button. I have a function here called isPrettyLanguage that checks if it's one of the supported languages to be improved visually. And if it is, then the button shows. And the button is like this little double bracket space, which matches how it looks in DevTools, actually. And if you click that, then it updates the editor by getting the pretty print version of whatever the language is, along with the editor value. And then now we can look and see what pretty print does. So we're good with this change. We're good with these two changes. Pretty print will be here. So the isPrettyLanguage just looks through a list of pre-configured pretty languages and sees if it's in there. The languages that I can prettyify are TypeScript, JavaScript, JSON, CSS, SCSS, less, HTML, Markdown, and Markdown X. So all of these, there'll be a button you can press that will format them in an improved way. Then the pretty print, again, takes that language. For JSON, it does a very basic thing. It's not even using prettier. It actually just does JSON stringify and then parse along with these additional arguments that give some automatic indenting. And that's essentially all you really need. So that works great for JSON. So far, at least in my tests. And if that's not the case and it doesn't return, then it's going to go here and lazy load prettier and then do prettier.format, and it's going to lazy load the language parser that it needs along with passing the code. And then how do we get the language parser? We pass in the language, and then I've had to do this kind of janky way, but this worked best for lazy loading, essentially. I guess these could be else ifs though. Although, does it really matter? No. There's no point in making these else ifs because if any of these occur, it'll be a return and then it's not going to go any further. So if it's JavaScript or TypeScript, we use the Babel parser and we lazy load it in to the plugins. Either of these three, we use the post CSS one, there's an HTML one, and there's a markdown one. Those were the only ones I found that were useful. I think there might have been one or two more, but these were the ones where I was like, okay, that's normal. That's what I would use it for. Otherwise, it's undefined. That's it. That's all there is to it, really. And the styling, what did I change in the styling? Yes, I made the prettier button slightly tweaked its position because those little squiggly brackets in that font are a little bit lower positionally where it just didn't look right on the bar. And that was all that was required positionally. Let's take a peek at it now. So finding a JSON file is easy enough. The session file is a JSON file, so let's check it out. So we open my PC, we open the session file, and you see here you get that mini file, and you're like, oh, I can't see any of that. It's too long. You're trying to look. It's like, what is that? Well, there's this little button right here. Do I have any? I should almost have a little title there that tells it what it does. Let's check the DevTools version. I'll show you what I mean by DevTools version. Sources. If you open up a minified file in here, let me find one. There's a button. Oh, you can't see it here. Let me make this bigger. See, right here, there's a button. And if I hover over it, it says pretty print and then the name of the file. Let's add that, actually, to the title. Where did that go? So it's in the status bar. And it's right here. I'm going to have, when I hover over the button, or this can be the entire LI. Got a title. And it'll be dynamic. And it was going to be pretty print and then the name of the file. So it's base name, which we may already have somewhere else. Do we? No. And it's URL. Do we have that? I think we do. Where can I find that? Oh, does the status bar not have the URL? Well, it should be in the process. So let's try to grab that from here and see if that works. Put it right here. Import base name because it currently isn't imported, I guess. Okay, that looks good. Let's give that a shot and see what that looks like. Now when I hover over this, yeah, there we go. Pretty print session.json. It doesn't show the titles for you. Interestingly enough, no, that one doesn't either. Yeah. Okay, so now it works. That visually works. Let's check it out. So I'm going to press the button. There we go. Now we got JSON that's formatted and way easier to read, and you can actually understand how my session file works a bit better now. Actually, this is the first time I've ever seen it kind of laid out like this, and it looks simple enough, honestly. It's pretty clear what's going on there. Cool. Oh, okay. That happened with the code that I just added, so the reason for this, we need there to be a URL. There's a URL, and we want to pretty print the language. Yeah. If there's no URL, it wouldn't make much sense. Let's see if that fixes it before we move on. Open up the session again. Do that pretty printing, close it. There we go, no complaint. If I open it again, hover, pretty print session.json. I click it, yeah, nice. It's the same with this, click. Oh, interesting, once it's pretty printed, it goes away. I don't think that's necessary in my case, because you could re-pretty print. Whereas here you can't now. Oh, it just now says formatted. Yeah, I prefer my way. It's like an auto formatter. I guess it'd be annoying if someone accidentally pressed that. Could you do Control Z? No, you can't. But But if I do this, I can do Control Z. It'd be cool if I could put it in the clipboard. Or put it in the undo, whatever you call it, undo history. I don't even know. Okay. Feature complete. I'm going to call this add prettier to IDE because that's what I called it before. Got this status bar piece that I added to with the little title. That doesn't hurt to have. And that's it. We've added prettier to our IDE, which is a cool feature. That's again where I'm trying to make it this like Notepad Plus, you know? It's like Notepad and VS Code had a baby. And then it got stuck in a nightmare of a fake OS. All right, let's open this up again. Where are we here? So that was just 1 day's worth of commits. Oh boy. Although I didn't do many this day. Avoid icon re-render. Yeah, I think this was just me figuring out there were some re-renders going on that didn't need to. I don't see why we won't apply these. I'm not going to go deep into testing them or anything any more than I already have. But these were just attempts to do some optimization when I noticed some unnecessary rendering going on. Your mileage may vary kind of thing. Let's take a peek at what they were anyways. Ugh. Window action. I've turned the on-close into a callback. That stopped it from re-rendering. Yeah, this was re-rendering too often. Didn't need to. Same with double-click. I had double-click all over the place, and the on-click part of it was not a callback. It was just a straight-up function that was getting remade too many times. And in the end, it was making the icon re-render all the time. Avoid icon re-render on clicking window. Yeah. Still, when you click a window, still in general, like I added the why did you render plugin to the code as a test. And there was a lot. There was a lot. More than I'm proud of, at least. Don't try and read a directory as a file. That's good advice. When was this happening? Yes. This is something I noticed while working on my file system backend. Was that not supported? It can. I was always interpreting not supported as meaning the file wasn't supported for rename, but you could copy it. The issue with that is that if it's a directory, then the not supported is actually more legit. And it's like, you can't do anything with this, walk away. So I check, is it a directory? Okay, you're done. Oh, is it a file? Okay, let's not rename it, but let's at least copy it. And I felt like that was the more graceful solution. So that is the one we are going to use. The change was just adding that stat check. Some of these are some simple ones. The usual system and refactor commits that take up most of the stream. Allow renaming directories and various tweaks. Ooh, various tweaks. I love these ones. Oh. Okay. So I did take the BrowserFS minified version from that patch, which means it must not have been the latest one that we looked at in the PR. Hopefully, I think this commit was the latest one. So we'll just update our BrowserFS. I didn't actually demo trying to rename a directory. Presumably that would have failed. After applying this patch, that will not have failed. More spam, more useless spam messages. Go away, spammer. Go away. So I'm just going to call this more simple this time. I'm just going to say update BFS lib to latest. To PR state, let's say. I think that we're at the PR state now. So that it matches what I've PR'd. Oh, darn it. Again, I didn't switch. I'm just making my commit message here. So I patched the new change. So now my BrowserFS is a little more up to date. Should have already been like that. Another minor tweak. Oh, again, Dustin. Lint tweaks. Okay, I think lint tweaks was the last one. Because I remember I put it on the PR, and then the pipeline on the PR complained about lint issues. This is the last one. then it's at the state. Oh, did I commit that change too? Darn it. Excuse me, just getting over a slight cold, but pretty much nothing. Got lucky. Lucky that it was only a minor cold. Now what's it complaining about? Oh, is this the old patch? That might have been the old one. I don't think it was, though. Uh-oh. Now I'm confused what the latest version is. These are both wrong? Patch does not apply. Let's double check this. I'm going to delete my old patches. So this is the lint tweaks to BFS. This should be the 717 guy. It's possible the lint tweaks make no difference at all, and that's why it's saying patch does not apply. I don't think so, though. Oh, you know what it is? It's that I can't skip an intermediary step. Unfortunately. Well, I can, just not as a patch. Let's just go, yeah. So I have to do this one first before I could patch it with that one. But at the same time, what I can do is I can just download this minified file, raw, and assume that's the final version. Hope it is. Oh, this is still in here? I'm so sloppy. Did I remove that in another one? Doesn't look like it. Well, we need to remove that too. I don't know how that got outdated, but I'm just going to fix this. Yeah, so we're going to save that file raw. Wait, where? It's not on my desktop, is it? Oh, I guess I already did save it. I'm going to save it twice. I'm going to edit it with Notepad++ to delete this source map. That should not have been there. In general, I always try to not let those source map files slip in because they just add extra network requests that I don't care about. Now we're going to go back into the code here. I'm going to copy the library to the file, and this will be the latest one, and hopefully the final update, because I don't like updating the same file 3-4 times. Here we go. Hopefully final update for BFS/FS API changes. And I'm not even going to add that to the show notes because it's an embarrassment how many times I had to commit that. Did it there, did it there, did it there, and that's the final one. Now we're on to PDF controls. Nice. So PDF controls, I have a thing for viewing PDFs. Let's demo it now. I am not running the dev environment, so let me start the dev environment. And at the same time, let me find a PDF. We can use my resume. Sure, why not? Or can we? Has it got too much information on it? TMI. No, not particularly. It has my phone number, but I have that on LinkedIn, I think, anyways. I already get so much goddamn spam anyways. Okay, fine with me. So here's my resume here. So I've got this PDF for viewing it now. Now this has some issues already. I've noticed this PDF viewer. Like, I can't, if you see, I can't scroll left here right now to see the other piece of that. That needs fixing because I can scroll all the way right. That's all the way to the right, I believe. But in general, I need my scrolling left and right. I have a note that needs to be fixed. But if it is the right size, it looks okay. So that's like the full size. You can see it shows all the pages. That part looks good, but what we are missing is displaying what page I'm on and also the ability to zoom and to unzoom. So that's what we're going to add now. Going to download the patch. Go into the code here and apply said patch, like so. And then decrypt said patch by trying to figure out what the heck did Dustin write. Let's start with files that aren't new. So on the PDF itself, I've added a ID to the ordered list because controls also has an ordered list, I think. And my selector was too general where it was like, just give me an ordered list and that's where the pages go. Now I'm more specific. This is for the pages. And then if we remember from the other episode, the container component now has a fifth argument, which is called sibling components. So there's a child component for the PDFs, which is the pages, but there's also a sibling to the pages, which goes above, on top, doesn't matter. That's the controls. And it needs to know the ID. So that part's simple. The styled PDF changed a little bit. I had to make room for the controls. So there's 40 pixels. That was about it. Yeah, also this OL selection got a little more generalized because I didn't Why did that get more generalized? I'm not sure. Yes, because now the whole div I wanted actually to be a relative positioned slightly below the top because the controls go in the top. So the page starts a little below that and the height accounts for it. So it's kind of like going from that, I kind of just shrunk it a little bit there by moving it down and decreasing its height. That's the styled PDF. So the hook, in use processes, I now have a thing for setting process arguments, which are like additional pieces of information you can attach to the process. And in this case, I attach the scale to the process. So for the PDFs, any PDF process will have a scale value to know what scale it is. And that's just the zoom level. Oh, my stomach's being angry with me. I don't know what I ate. My wife made too many empanadas. I ate them all. Another argument that gets stuck in the process is the count, the number of pages. That might be it. Yeah, here I switched this selector to be less general. It's about pages now. And I've also used an intersection observer. That's fun. I hadn't used one of those on this project yet. So the intersection observer is associated with the container that has the pages. Sorry, it's associated with the entire container of the window. A threshold of 50%, and it's set on observing the LI items. So the idea there is once something's 50% visible within the window container, it will have hit the threshold to be mentioned by the intersection observer. Oh, maybe I gotta have some water. It might. Oh, it's just like gas or something. I don't know. Oh. Okay. So in the intersection observer, for each page, basically, page container, when it hits that intersection point and it becomes intersecting, I update the argument of what page we're on to be whatever the page's index is. And that's just a way of, so when they're scrolling down visually, the page number will update whenever they hit the point where a page is 50% visible in the window. In the directory, I've added some default sizes because that just looks a lot better at that size, and I think that's an okay size for now. I do have a ticket to work on sizing in general and to make it more general so that windows can no longer go beyond the borders, so that I can have bigger defaults, and if someone has a smaller screen, then it'll just become maximized or something. And if they unmaximize that, it'll become some scaled down version, that kind of thing. Okay, in the types, I added those 3 process arguments and attached those as possible process arguments. And then, yeah, we just get into the files themselves. So let's look at the controls here. Here's the markup for it. It's pretty simple. Basically just another organized list that has the different controls. First thing being the page count, the number of page you're on, and the count. Second part being the scale, the zooming. So there's a zoom out button, there's the scale itself, and then there's the zoom in button. And they work by updating the argument, the scale argument. And rather than doing like some multiplication thing, like add 10% kind of thing, I actually made a scale list that matched the scaling that's used on, I think, like the Chrome PDF viewer. So you start at 1, and if you go down, it's like 90%, 80%, 75, 67, 50, 33, and same in the other direction. I felt like that was a little more consistent. And then once it hits 25%, can't zoom out anymore. Once it hits 500%, can't zoom in anymore. And the percentage scales in the middle. Gets the arguments. Yeah, there's really not too much to that one. And the styled control. Well, styling is just styling. I guess you'll see how it looks. I added a shadow. I got some background color. The height. 40 pixel height. Positioned. Fully width. Just position stuff to look the way I wanted it to. Basically, I added a little line element here with the. If it's not the last element, then we add a pseudo after element of this background color in which the container has one width and it's 20 pixels to the left. So if you have like a bunch of items, it'll just make all these little dividers kind of. We got some padding on the pages and the scale to have the positioning similar to how it should look. Let's check it out. We open it up. There we go. Now we have some very basic controls, but they're not so bad. So you see page 1 of 3. And if I scroll down here enough, past the 50% mark, basically, now it's page 2. If I scroll this to past the 50% mark, now it's page 3. And I guess now I'm noticing that it's basing it on the entire thing. So the 50% doesn't feel like 50%. I wonder if I can rein it in a bit to be not, where's the observer here? The root. Instead of being current, maybe it should be the OL, actually. It should be this. Because that's what contains all the LIs. That actually makes the most sense. Hopefully it doesn't break it. Let's test it out. Good. Let's try it out. Now I open it, page 1 of 3. Oh yeah, now it didn't work at all. Okay. Maybe the OL considers them all inside all the time, so it's like there's no yeah, I don't know on that one. That's weird. Perhaps we should adjust the threshold then slightly. Maybe it should be like 60% visible. Basically, I just want it so that the middle line is about in the middle of this space here. So it'd be like hereabouts. Let's put it right where the PDF icon is. So that's like the 50% point I want. Let's see when this number switches to a 2. Oh, did I not fix the root part? Wait, I did. What happened? I just have to go down more? Oh yeah, so 60% isn't the answer. I should have went in the other direction, maybe 40%. Okay, let's try that one more time. Open this, find the center point I want. Let's see how close we are to it. Boom. Okay, that's perfect, actually. So yeah, that's probably closer to how I want it to look. Is like that. Page 3. Yeah, nice. 2, 1. And then zoom in, zoom in. So you can see the zooming in works. Zooming out works. This is an old resume now that we have this news I told you at the start of the show about. Gonna work at Microsoft. It's so insane. I'm hyped, man. I'm hyped. It's Monday. Okay, so there's our PDF controls. What did we change here? Oh, I just hadn't staged this, and then here I just switched the threshold slightly. Yeah, I think 40% fits better with, if you're going to use the whole window, even though we lost 40 pixels on the top, maybe we tweak the threshold a bit. Okay, so why did I put part 1? I'm trying to remember what's... Actually, the controls are pretty good the way they are. I think the part 1 is that the PDF thing isn't done yet, like I said about that scrolling issue. But the controls, I mean, zoom works. The scale works. Yeah. Let's not say part 1. I don't know what's left to do there. Let's actually double check I didn't slip other commits in right after. No, package upgrades we don't care about. Anything else with PDFs? No? Okay. Yeah, let's just call it PDF controls. Commit that. Get rid of that part 1 note. Oops, jump to me for a second, and then let's jump to whatever the next thing is. Let's see if these package upgrades are... Was there anything worth talking about? Nope, just more random package upgrades that I don't want to do. Probably they messed up these follow-up commits a little bit. How many more we got here? We don't have too many more left, and some of these I skipped. So let's... I think we're going to make some... We're at an hour and a half. Yeah, we're going to be close to 2 hours, I think, and we'll see how we get. Video player loads after player loads. What the heck's that mean? I feel like I changed this. Oh, right. Yeah, this was nice. This basically just, before when Video.js would load, it would say like loading. Wait, is this even what I wanted really? Because with set loading, I wonder if the controls are not visible then while it's loading. Maybe this was okay the way it was before. I think the idea here is that it doesn't look like it's loading anything because the loading currently was just like when Video.js initializes, before it's even looked at the video, then it's like, okay, you're done loading. And then the video URL would update and it would like take time. And I think that was what I tried to improve here. But now that I think about it, I guess the controls would also be not visible, but maybe that makes sense. If the video is not loaded yet, maybe you shouldn't even see the controls. Yeah. Let's go with that patch. Let's not question this one too much more. As far as how to test it, it's not really easy to test. You need a big file. I could test it, but you know what? I think that's one of those ones. It's pretty minor. Let's just patch. Oh, that was the wrong patch. This is the right patch. There we go. That one was a lot more friendly. I basically just moved the loading logic to a different position. Instead of triggering the loading of the player based on when loading was done, I load the player when loading's done, and I trigger loading being done when... What? Does this make any sense? What do I even do here? I guess I just delay it a little bit, honestly. This still isn't... I guess this is a step earlier. Or, yeah, this is a little bit better. This isn't what I thought about the URL part loading. This is just specifically that this is when the player is done. So I was actually, yeah, I was loading it even more premature than I realized. Okay, so that fix is okay. Let's not question that one any further. Let's just speak of it no further. Safer session var. That probably means I ran into some kind of error, yeah. Whenever this happens and I found a safer version, it's usually because some kind of condition or scenario caused it to break. I think in some scenario that can be empty. I don't know why. It probably shouldn't be, but at the same time, if just adding a little default like that basically fixes that ever being an error in that position, I'm usually okay with that a lot of the time, and just being like, it's like plugging a hole, you know, when you got a leak. Maybe it doesn't deal with the problem as to why there's all these holes everywhere, but at least it's not leaking too much. More consistent loading in v86. Really? How so? Ah, yes. v86 was having a real problem where it wouldn't load a second file. It was messing things up. This fixed that. I did a lot of bug fixes, like more than I even remembered. Now that I think about it, though, I remember like I had a bunch of bugs noted on the wall, and I was like, I'm just going to start grabbing red papers and be like, how easy are these to fix? And they were easy for the most part. Yeah, now so I set the emulator can be undefined. And when you start loading, right when you start loading, I set the emulator. Oh, right, because load disk image would trigger twice because emulator was not in URL before another state would update and another use update would occur, all before the emulator was done loading enough to get to this stage here where it set itself. So from the time I got to the load command, wherever the heck that is, from when time I call this to the time it would get here, this was getting triggered again because this still wasn't set. So now I kind of preemptively set it, I guess. Yeah, undefined, but I kind of give it a little spot so that if the command gets triggered again for some other reason, it doesn't kind of fall over itself. Next, Python improvements. This was a fun one. Did I do 2 Python improvements actually? No, just one. So I have Python running on my browser app. My app. No, not written in Python, running Python. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you can now run Python files and run them directly from the terminal, which is kind of neat. I've also now have a Python extension, so I've added the Python icon. I've added it to the extensions here. And I've also added a cool concept called a command. So I can say that it's runnable in a terminal, and then when the terminal tries to run certain processes, or when the terminal's launched, it checks, did the thing that launched me have a command? Or yeah, did the extension that is associated with me being launched have a command? Let's see it in action here. Where is it in action, actually? I think it's in use terminal here. Yeah, so when the terminal initially loads, if there's a URL, if the local echo, that the main echo program exists, then we do the then we just treat it as like a paste operation. Because I also use the URL to handle pasting. But the URL can be used on initial load. And that's this other scenario now. So if local echo doesn't exist yet, we're right at the very start of load. Let's figure out if we're going to have an initial command based on that. We get the extension, and if the extension can be run in the terminal, and if it has a command, then we will set the initial command as whatever the command is plus the URL. So in this case, if you open a py file in the terminal, it would do the py command, py space, and then the URL. And this could work for other commands too. Now in prompting here, I had to add a little scenario for this initial command piece. So if there is an initial command, before we do the final prompting, we print out the prompt of the initial command. We add it to the history so that it can be checked, we can look at it again. And then we run the command, and then we prompt again. Now if there's no initial command, we go right to the prompting, which is basically just to show the little, hey, you're ready to type kind of thing. So that's it. I basically just got this idea of an initial command for the terminal. What is this? This is in the command interpreter. I had to add something for Python here. Yeah. So before I was just doing Python and you passed code in, and it could just run some Python code in the terminal. Now I can also pass a file in, and it'll run that whole file. So we check to see if the command arg, the first one is a file. We do this get full path, and then we see, did that path exist? If it did, we read it, and we treat that as the code. Otherwise, we treat the code as the entire command, the argument that was sent. And then, what is this? This is for being able to run those files with the same idea. So before in the terminal, you could type an app name. So let's say in terminal, you could type terminal to open another terminal. Another scenario that I wanted to do was that you could just put a file name directly with no command. And if that file, then it would look at the extension and do the same thing. Okay, this extension, I have a command for that. I'll run this file with that command. And then it'll basically just do that. And then in Python, this was an interesting little piece I added. So the Python, the pyode lib, didn't support print commands basically, but some Python scripts I know are going to have print commands in them. So I've made a way here to be able to catch the traditional pyode result plus the print version. How do I do that? When it says, so like a traditional version, let's say this version command here, this sys.version would actually create the result that would give me the version. But if I were to do like print sys version and then run that with like outside my OS and normal Python, I think that you would see it. But in pyode, you don't see anything. And what print does is it prints it to the console output. But I don't want the user to have to go to the console. So the solution I found is this capture standard out. And basically what I do is I import the things I need here. Import sys, import io, and then I do sys.standardout equals io.stringio. And I found this command somewhere, by the way. And I've also realized that you can do import sys more than once. So I was thinking at first like I had to search the original code and make sure it wasn't duplicating import sys, but I don't think that matters. So I call this like the capture string, and then what I do is I just add that onto the code basically. So before the code, I put this little special capture string that's also going to make sys.standardout equal whatever gets printed. Then what I do is I try to get standard out by doing a second Python command that just does sys.standardout get the value. So then I call that standard out, plus I have result, and based on that I print one or the other or both. So if there's a result and there's printings, do the result, then do the printing, you know, first and then or one or the other. And I also realized that it wasn't catching errors and printing them. So now if there's a Python error, it will also just print that. This makes it so the user doesn't have to go to the console to do any of the pyode stuff, basically. Now I want to test it somehow. Let's try to find a cool way to test it. Let's just do like Python hello world example file. Python program. So here's a basic Python file, I guess. Let's go to our code here. Open up let's make a file called test.py, make it a Python file. So it's going to have that Python extension. Open it in Monaco, and we're going to paste this code in here, the hello world example. I'll save it. Now I'm going to, I think I can even just double click this and it'll work. Let's try it. Double click. And there we go. So you see it filled in the command, py dot in the path, and then it ran hello world right there, hello world. And I could also just drag it on here and just directly go hello world. And we could build onto that, and that's like it's legit running Python there. So I could do like, let's say 1 + 1 and run that. There we go. We got 2. So that's doing math in Python right there. And I'm rusty on Python, so I don't have any other cool examples here, but you can expand on it from there. I mean, obviously it doesn't do everything Python does. It does whatever PyOdid can do, so. Anywho, that was some cool improvements, I thought. And those are actually improvements that I can use in other apps. Like the command extension idea. That's something I'll be able to use with other... I actually started thinking about that last night, and then I realized batch files, like .bat, I actually might already be able to do a bit of that with my internal commands, because I've been creating command line commands, and they're basically the same as batch commands in some ways. Not for the looping and the logic and stuff, but anyways, it was a fun idea. Ugh, where are we? I'm so tired today. Just tired in general. Not sick and tired, just tired. Only clear IndexedDB if browser supports it, right? I think some of what happened here was I opened things in Firefox and realized there were some bugs. So I do some Firefox fixes here. Let's go down that journey together. First one is the IndexedDB clearing. I have a command that was deleting all the IndexedDB databases, but it turns out Firefox doesn't support the index.databases command necessarily. So now when I do clearfs, I just delete like I was doing before, and then at the end here, if it's supported, or wait, what happens here? Oh, I turned everything that was happening before for the IndexedDB stuff into a function called clearfs. No, I didn't do that either. This part here is the browser fs clearing part. I moved that into its own function. Then I check for index database support. If it's there, I clear all the databases except browserfs. Then I do clearfs. Otherwise, I just do clearfs. Yes, that's correct. Oh, I'm getting sick of, not sick of talking. My headache's feeling like it's vibrating from the amount of talking I'm doing. Maybe I have a deep voice. I don't think so, though. It's just a cold. Simpler check. What? Oh, I should have noticed this before. That is better. Dang it. Let's do it then. Refactor. I should have applied this before. This is where I sometimes wonder about my weekly branches. Do I want to go in and like curate them and combine this into 2? Obviously, I chose not to in this case. This is just a little refactor, turning 3 lines into 2. And pretty minor one, honestly. Simpler IndexedDB check. Yeah, I'm not even going to put it in my show notes as something worth mentioning. Let's move on to the next bug. Fix dragging in Firefox. Yes, dragging was broken. Turned out to just be the pointer events here. Oddly enough, that pointer event didn't matter in Chrome, but it actually didn't need to be there in the first place. Where is it here on the file entries? Here it is. This one here. Yeah, that's the one. So that fixes dragging wasn't working properly on Chrome. Or sorry, on Firefox. Worked on Chrome for some reason. But definitely I want things to work on Firefox. I'm going to do much more cross-browser testing in the upcoming weeks. Fix text selection in Firefox. This was also broken. I like that I was able to find one-liners essentially. It just required a lot of like tracing stuff to be like, here is exactly where in Firefox it needs this little bit more information than it seems Chrome needed. Chrome made more assumptions or had some kind of default that allowed this to work, and I didn't notice it because I develop in Chrome. But then Firefox didn't make those same assumptions, basically. That's what it usually ends up being. Progress bar color, that was another one. I needed to add a different one. And what's interesting too is there's Moz progress bar dash value, and that's not the correct one. It has to be this other one. Because yeah, I have a little file progress copy thing. And I'll add, there's the Mozilla version of how to color it. I wasn't aware there was a different one. Now we know. The more you know, DDD. You know, the little rainbow. There's another one. What's next? What's the next Firefox thing? Sorting. This was a weird one. I'm trying to remember what this was. It was like the way that the sort function works wasn't giving the same kind of way of handling defaults. So it would make the folders like flipped. So weird. But again, I'm proud I was able to trace that one down because that's another one. It's like, where is this coming from kind of thing. There we go. And at the same time, none of these seem like harmful. It's not like, oh, that was a hack to get it working. It's like, okay, yeah, that's, I just had to make a few things more explicit. Fix sorting in Firefox. And then fix peak not working for photos. Yes, I was clearing the buffer of the photos too early. So peak no longer had them as blobs to be able to re-render them. Excuse me. So I added a check for closing, which I already had. So only when it's closing the photo app should it be cleaning up the blobs. Fix, 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 fix. I like to see that. So I got 21 commits. It's not all of them, but I'm going to do a push now just to get some of them on the branch, and then we're going to do some more. Push those 21. Okay, let's keep going. We're making good progress. Oh yeah, we're right at the bottom now. We're right at the last day. I didn't do these today. Did I just do nothing? Oh wait, these were all supposed to be today? I think I just did this in the morning where I committed this just to get out of the way. This is kind of cool. Let me go to the site where I'm trying to work it on. So DX Ball is something I used to play with my mom. It's the classic game. This guy's kind of recreated it using the same assets. It's not the exact same logic, but he's basically written it in JavaScript. And I don't know if you've ever played DX Ball, but it's kind of fun. And I've just been working on porting this. It's been a little tricky. Actually, I'm noticing it does much better mouse lock than I was getting. I wasn't getting the same cursor lock style that is working here. It's like not cursor locked though. You see, like I have no cursor, but if I go out of here, I'm not locked. So that's the issue I was having that I haven't solved yet. So for now, I just put this in the commits so that I can use it later. I'm going to make a bookmark to this. Oops. All right, bookmark it. And we're not going to do that one today. We're just going to move on from that because I don't have that one good. Let's do this next one. Don't use an image as icon when it's empty. Yes. So I'm going to show you when this happens. In Windows, you can make a bitmap that has no code in it. So I just did that. I'm going to drag it on here. So you see the image here shows nothing. And then when I open it in Photos, it's a broken image. We're going to fix both of those things today. First, let's fix the image. Okay, hopefully we're back. Gonna double check that it shows me on my thing. We had our weekly OBS crash, unfortunately, that keeps occurring. Maybe I need to do an OBS update. I don't know. I almost need to nuke it and redo the settings. So thanks for staying with me. Sorry that we crashed. Let's try to remember what we were doing here. I got to reset up a few things, unfortunately. Should only take a second. There's our browsers back, and then our VS Code. Oh, nice. It already knew where our VS Code was. So I'd taken this patch, I applied the patch, and we were just about to talk about the patch. The patch was not showing an empty icon when the file is empty. So I say if the content is 0, don't update the icon. Just use the default. That'll fix the first thing. So you see here now it shows no icon, but here it still shows broken. Let's do that next. I don't know if that's next in line here, but it is next that I'm going to do. The next one, here's the one I wanted to do anyways next. show an error for a broken image. I noticed that this happens in the photo app. That if you open up an image that has 0 bytes or is broken, it actually does show a message. And I wanted to recreate that. So here's my patch to do that. Oops. Basically, all I did is I made a state called broken image. And if there's a broken image, we don't allow zooming in or out. And the way I check for a broken image is that the image itself has an onError handler. So if onError is triggered, then we got a broken image. If onLoad is triggered, we don't have a broken image. And if we have a broken image, instead of using visibility now, I've switched to using display in this case. And if it's broken, I don't show it at all. And now what I do is that if there's a broken image, what I do is I show file name and then a new line, and then I say, sorry, can't open this file because the format is currently unsupported or the file is corrupted. And that exactly emulates how it works on Windows. Here I centered that text so that it's centered in the right spot. And that's all there was to it. Let's take a peek at it. Here's me opening the broken file, and there we go. We get the message. And it says, yeah, that file is not good. Don't use this file. All right. So that one's committed. What other? We had a couple more we wanted to do today. Better URL parsing for browser. Yeah, this was just a simple one where I want to be able to, like in Chrome, where you can kind of type a partial URL and it'll figure out the rest. I like that feature, so I wanted to attempt to have a tiny bit of that in my browser app. I'll just show you what I did here, nothing too fancy. So instead of isValidURL, I've just turned that into the function that gets you the URL, basically. I call it getURL, and we just call the input now. It's not, we don't assume it's the URL necessarily, because I also do the searching here too. I call it getURL or search. I check if it has a schema, either HTTP or HTTPS at the start. I also check if it has a top-level domain, a .com, a .ca, a .net, or a .org. Those are the four where it's like, if I see this, I'll allow some leeway. Otherwise, we're just going to consider it a search. I could make this list bigger, but I don't want to right now. Maybe I will in the future. These are the main ones for me. Then what I do is similar to what I had before, where I do a try to convert it to a URL, but rather than just doing a check that it did, I actually just allow that to parse, and I get the URL and I return that. And also what I specify here when I'm making the URL is I say if it has a schema or it doesn't have a top-level domain, then we just use the raw input. So if it has a schema, then it's already a valid URL you probably sent me. Or if there's no top-level domain, then adding the schema is not going to help things. So just use the input, and if it works, great. Otherwise, it's going to be busted. And if it doesn't have the TLD detected, wait, has TLD. Oh, so, right. So if it has a schema, if it doesn't have a schema, wait a minute. Has a schema and doesn't have TLD, I should say. I think this logic's correct. Basically, I just wanted to try to auto guess. Let's just show it. I'll show you what I mean here. So we open the browser, loads normal, and now if I type meow.com, enter. Well, meow is a bad example. Let's try test.com, testing.com. There we go. So that's what I wanted. I wanted testing.com, or if I type HTTP, it goes to the same place, or if I type with an S, it goes to the same place. If I type without the .com, it'll probably still work because it's got a schema. It won't work, but it'll try. But if there's no schema either, then it'll do a search. Great. That's how I wanted my fake browser to work. My frowser, as I call it. I don't call it that. That's a joke. Okay, done. We got our better URL parsing. I see another message from Abra I missed earlier. Make a new DOS game called Home Alone and put it to apps. Okay, I'll think about it. I mean, you can make a million DOS games, so that's like a never-ending story kind of thing. We did this, we did this, we did this. We have not done this. This one's minor, but we didn't do it yet. Basically, I just add one more extension, HTM. I know that sometimes there's these .htm files, so if somebody wants to drag that into my desktop, then we can also treat it like an HTML file. Simple enough. Added HTML extension. In general, I like to have as many extension supports as I can. That's another big reason I wanted to do that libarchive, just to be able to support 7-zip and RAR, even though it's kind of like, why? Oh, we only have one more thing, it looks like, and that is the allow more browser iframe options. Yeah, basically I just added allow pointer lock and allow presentation, because those are things that the browser, probably I'm okay with it doing. I don't see why not. Pointer lock especially, because then there's some cool websites you could visit in the fake browser that allow you to play games, and I wanted you to be able to do pointer lock in that scenario. Okay, so I didn't do any apps today, it looks like. We found that one bug. I'll put here bug. That's a big one. Bug. Let me commit this here, and let's just see what else we had. So it looks like we didn't have any other changes this week. We're not doing the DX ball one. Yeah, so what was it? 21 commits plus 5. So we only had 26 commits this week. So you've stayed with me till the end. It was a, like I said, 2-hour episode, just as I estimated. If you like this video, please throw me a like. If you want to subscribe, it'd be much appreciated. It motivates me. Thanks for staying for the big news I had that was at the start of the video. I'm hoping everybody liked that as well. I'm pretty excited about that, and I'll keep everyone posted on my progress at Microsoft and how things go there. And I'm excited. I really want to make a change there. It's not about the money for me or any of that other stuff. Working at Microsoft's always been a dream for me. And I just want to, it's not even a career thing, you know, it's like, what do I want to do with my life? I love working on software. Let's see where this can go, you know? That's what I'm doing with the side project. That's how maybe that's how I got my way into Microsoft. I have no idea, you know, how I managed to get my foot in the door. I'm just happy for it, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, other than that, I think we're done for this video. Thanks for tuning in. See you in the next one. Goodbye.